Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but we want to give a shout out to our partners, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, the Global Community of Women in High School Sports, the Florida Coaches Coalition, and We Coach. You've heard me say many times before, these are four great organizations. You should really add them to your network. And now, don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes. We're going to give our sponsors a shout out. These are all great companies that I used as an athletic director. You should be using them too. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Gipper, the official social media graphics solution for the Educational AD Podcast. It's also your one-stop for creating world-class social media content for your site. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to show you how to start celebrating your athletes and promoting your teams using their platform. It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. Mention this podcast. You'll get a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. Are you tired of spending hours and hours with fundraisers that take too much time and give you little, if any, return? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com/EDAD. SnapRaise is hands down the best online fundraiser. We used it at my school with great success. Most importantly, it works. Go to snapraise.com/EDAD. You'll find an entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. You're also automatically entered for a $1,500 drawing for your next SnapRaise fundraiser. That's snapraise.com. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive, that's right, interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to display those records. It's also a great way to showcase your school's proudest moments. Mention the podcast, guess what? You'll get a nice discount. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thank you to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, more customization. The Hometown team is here to make the best online ticketing solution for you and your schools. It's hometownticketing.com. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided to help them coach our kids up to their highest level. Join the 8 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule a live web demo to see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Their products not only generate income for your school, they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that demonstration today. We also want to say thank you to Home Campus. Go to homecampus.com. It's the official and exclusive high school and state association platform for the podcast. It's also your one-stop for things like scheduling, student-athlete eligibility and clearance, and a whole lot more. Go to homecampus.com. As an athletic director, I used it every day, and it was just great. The team at Home Campus is waiting for you. Go to homecampus.com to get signed up today. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. At my school, we use surveys for just about everything: coaches, parents, kids. And the information that came back was almost always positive, but it also allowed that squeaky wheel parent to vent, the ones we hear from all the time. Athletic Surveys connects you to that squeaky wheel, but it also connects you to the 98% that support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with that squeaky wheel parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them create a custom survey that'll let you take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. That's athleticsurveys.com. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going all the way across the Atlantic today to England, and we're going to be visiting with Gordon MacLelland. Gordon's got an incredible background in athletics. I think it's going to be a real interesting guest today. He is the CEO and founder of an organization called Working with Parents in Sport. Any athletic director here in the United States knows that, working with parents, what we have started to call partnering with parents, is so vital to the success of any athletic program. Gordon's a blogger. He has a tremendous website, a lot of resources. He also is a speaker on a national level. He's a consultant. He works with teams, works with schools. And we're excited to have him on the podcast today. So, Gordon MacLelland, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Great to join you.
Well, again, I know you're very busy. We appreciate you spending time with us. For our listeners, we're recording this on October 30th, so it's going to be very timely when you're listening to it. Gordon, we always like to let our listeners get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your own university days, and then we'll take a break and hear more about your early career. But what's the Gordon MacLelland origin story?
Oh, it's been quite nice looking back that far and thinking about it. I think a pretty normal childhood. I think one that was littered with a lot of sport and activity, but not obviously formal sports back then. I'm getting a bit older now. Very much a lot of free play. Got introduced and taken, I guess, by my parents to play a number of sports, rugby, soccer, did swimming, got introduced to golf and a range of different things. And I always still remember, getting home from school and I was always desperate to go and play sport. And of course, again, back then we didn't have it on the TV very much like the options we have now that's there. So whenever there was sport on, I still remember sitting around as a family and thinking, yeah, this is really cool. This is going to be a big part of my life. And I guess I set off through that. And then at the age of 11, I got sent away. Well, not sent away. I went away to boarding school. But again, not because my parents were particularly wealthy, but I think I was quite good at sport, and that was in rugby. So that was the sport I grew up with throughout my teenage years. I guess culminating in an England under-19 rugby trial. So I think you get to that level within your, sports, you're doing pretty well. Didn't quite work out after that. Played couple of games below our sort of premiership in rugby, so I was paid to play for a couple of years at university and after university, and then I got injured and probably wasn't quite good enough and maybe fell out a bit of love with the playing side, and that's when I got into coaching.
I love that self-awareness. I always use a statement. I played some small college football and ran track here in the States, but I say that injuries and a lack of talent kept me out of the National Football League. In the States, obviously sports are more entwined with the schools, particularly at the middle school and the high school level. There's club and travel ball and things like that. But for you, you mentioned you got home from school and you just couldn't wait to get involved in sports. And then the boarding school experience, you had, each of those schools, they had their teams. What are some memories from those types of those games? The travel, the competition, anything stick out for you all these years later?
I mean, I think it was a unique experience and in many ways a false world to the reality of the one that you find when you go into the big world at 18 and 19 and you're getting paid to do it. And you suddenly realize that everything's not quite as nice as you maybe lived in as you were growing up. But yeah, look, I guess we're very fortunate in a school called Sedbergh. We were probably in the top 10 schools in the United Kingdom. We got to play the biggest school games, in that generation, traveling the country. Obviously those bonds that you pick up with your players from living together and training together, obviously the opportunities that a school like that provides, that everything's there for you. You turn up and the sport was a big part of your life alongside your education. And I think those connections with coaches, teachers, other players, I think does provide a unique experience. As I say, which was unique at the time. And then I think the transition into the adult world then is can be challenging, I think.
We're going to talk about how working with parents in sports develop, but going back to those university days, in the under 19, elite team, you've made a career now in sport. Back then, as a player, did you ever think that outside of playing, that you were still going to be involved with sport years later? Was that part of your awareness?
Probably not at the time, because at the time all I ever wanted to be was to play the sport professionally. So I think there was probably a period of time where, as that's not going quite the way you want it to go, that idea of, well, what else do I do? What do I enjoy the most? And I'd still spent lots of time playing computer games and coaching and managing and trying to be a commentator. I still remember that back from, I guess, the bedroom when I was 10. So I don't know whether I was deliberately setting myself up for the life that I find myself in now, but it's certainly been that was certainly useful.
Yeah, I'm very much the same way. The only thing that I knew back then was I didn't want to work for a living. And so, I think we both found ways to stay involved with something we love, sports, even though we're certainly not playing anymore. Our guest today for our listeners is Gordon MacLelland. He's the CEO of an organization called Working with Parents in Sports. He's also from and in England. We're going to find out more about that organization and why you should be interested as an athletic director. But let's go and take our first break. This is the Educational AD Podcast, and we'll be right back. Hey, we want to say thanks to Gipper for their support of the podcast. Gipper is the official social media graphics solution for our podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to show you how to create world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel. Your kids are on social media, and if you're not celebrating your teams and promoting your athletes, you're really missing out on a great opportunity. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 high school and college athletic programs across the country, and it's professional graphic design made simple. It's so simple, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast. You'll get a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Gordon MacLelland. He's the CEO of Working with Parents in Sports, a terrific organization. It's in England, but you can still access it, on the website and all his various resources. Gordon, you kind of took us up through your college days, that brush with sports fame, the national team. What were some of your early career positions that kind of led you to what you're doing now with Working with Parents in Sports?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I think once the sport starts to unravel and starts to go wrong, you start having to look at alternative options. And I was fortunate enough to go and work in a school in New Zealand for a year straight after university, and I got into coaching there. Really good school, did lots of coaching, rugby and cricket, did some fitness training with rowing squads, really threw myself into that and decided that actually I'm really loving this coaching journey. I think this is something that I want to continue to do. So came back to the UK, took up a similar position, a very lowly paid position. We were talking about this the other night, and I'm not sure anybody would do it now, but I spent a number of years back at the school that I'd played. I coached the top teams, rugby forwards, but I was also, because I didn't have enough money, I took a second job, strange one, back in my hometown club where I coached the adults at the age of 22. And if anybody says, how do you learn to coach adults at the age of 22? You have to learn very quickly on the ground. I think that probably stood me in really good stead, because nobody ever starts by being paid to coach adults and coaching an elite team at 22. And I seem to have done my coaching journey in reverse. So definitely a bit different.
Yeah. Working with an adult population as a coach, or in my case, it was an official, right out of college, I think really learn, on the job, right away. Um, what was that like going back to your own school? I'm sure there were some instructors and some people there that remembered you as a student. Sometimes they welcome you back. Sometimes I remember when I went back to my school, I had teachers going, "You became a teacher?" And so, how was it for you going back?
Yeah, look, I think it was pretty fair, wasn't it? I think the ones that had probably driven mad in the subjects I didn't like weren't overly thrilled to see you. I think the ones that maybe had those good relationships with you were obviously quite pleased to see you going back and contributing. And particularly in the field I was in, I do think I was sort of massively dedicated to my coaching. It was every hour and it was everything to me, even with the adult sport in your hometown where you were sort of born and my parents are still living there. I probably put it all on me. I had to be as good as I possibly could be all the time, and I was desperate to learn and yeah, really devoted. People talk about coaching now and where you find your information. I think we'll be doing courses soon on who you listen to, looking at the social media works. But I don't think anything sets you up quite like different environments, different age groups, hour after hour, 10 sessions a week, talking to good mentors, trying things out. If it doesn't work, changing it, adapting it, playing with it, all of those things. I don't think you can ever replicate that in coach education. I really, if you're prepared to evolve and if you're curious, I think experience is an incredible thing.
Looking back to, those early years as a coach, working with adults, working with kids, can you recall an incident, a moment that at the time it really didn't seem that meaningful, but now looking back in your present position, your present role, that you go, hey, that was an important moment. Anything stick out for you like that?
I mean, look, I always think back to I think the adult version, and people maybe not want to listen to you. Why should I listen to a 22-year-old who, okay, might have been quite a good player, but I'm in my 30s and I don't particularly want to listen. And I remember the sort of the 10 people training at the start and the 38 training by the end 5 years later. And, I probably didn't realize it at the time, but I guess that really sticks with me in so much that you think, well, how on earth did I do that? Because I still don't know. But I do think it came down to, that building of relationships, clearly caring about what you did, bringing people with you. I don't think it could have been done any other way. But certainly some of those traits, without realizing I was doing it at the time, I think now that ability to bring people with you and feel like the part of something is certainly massively valuable in whatever we try to do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The building those relationships. I don't know if this cliches made it over to England, or who knows, maybe it started there. But coaches are always fond of saying, and it is true, kids or adults, the people that you're coaching, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it is so very true at any level. So great example. Save some of those great ideas for the toolbox. Okay. For our listeners,
Yeah.
once again, we're visiting today with Gordon MacLelland, longtime coach, expert in sports instruction, also the CEO of an organization called Working with Parents in Sport. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to take the first of 3 deeper dives into working with parents in sports. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Snap Mobile for their support. Are you tired of spending hours and hours with a fundraiser that gives you little, if any, return on investment? You need to stop right here and go to snapraise.com/EDAD. SnapRaise is hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at my school with great success. And the important thing is it works. They even have a program where they will give you your funding before you actually do your fundraiser. Nobody else does that. Go to snapraise.com. You're also going to find other powerful tools that will help you as an athletic director do your job better. You're also automatically entered into a $1,500 fundraising drawing on your next SnapRaise fundraiser. That's snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. Go to their website and check out their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to showcase your school record boards for all the teams, for all the sports, or your school's Hall of Fame, or simply showcase your school's proudest moments and your top role models. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast. Guess what? They'll give you a nice discount. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Gordon MacLelland, the CEO of Working with Parents in Sports. Gordon, again, you had, I think, what is a very typical and relatable background for most of our listeners here in the States. Going to college, being involved in sports, getting a job out of college, coaching and teaching. But along the way, something inspired you to do something different. So, what's the story behind working with parents in sports? How did it get started for you?
Well, I think there were a couple of things. I think the reality is I technically should be 60 now because I managed to do my coaching between 21 and 43 when I stopped. Most other people start at 40 and finish at 60. But because that had happened, I think I'd achieved a lot of the things in the spheres I was working, coached a couple of national title winning sides, coached some of the best 18-year-olds in the country, had some success back in my hometown at a lower level, but had promotions and cup wins. And, and unless I was going to the very elite of the game, there wasn't a huge amount left there. I was conscious that it was becoming a little bit like Groundhog Day. I love new players. I love different teams. I could do that, but it was just getting a little bit repetitive. And I became a parent. And I took my 3-year-old son to a local hall to start playing football. I was doing all of the wrong things. I was scrolling on my phone. I wasn't paying much attention to him falling over every 5 meters over a football. And at the end of this session, I was approached by a Premier League football scout. Well, wow, this is it. Hollywood beckons. This is the best thing that's ever possibly happened. And I think I went through the range of emotions that most parents go through, that, this is just amazing. Somebody thinks my kid's really good at something. And I left the sports hall still thinking this is amazing that a Premier League football team might think my 3-year-old son's good at football. Obviously, that's soccer for your listeners. And I remember getting in the car and thinking, what on earth are you possibly thinking with a sports science degree, 20 odd years in coaching and teaching at all those different age levels, that you think this is a good idea? So I got home and I probably did what most parents do, because no parents tell us how to parent. I'll type it into Google. How do you support a 5-year-old son in sport? Because I thought 3 was pushing it a bit. So I remember typing that in and I found all this information scattered all over the internet, not in one place. I thought it was very negative towards parents. I felt that it was trying to label parents. Everybody wanted a solution, telling them that this is how they should behave, that they can be good, bad, helpful, unhelpful. And I just felt we could do it a whole heap better, because even now, the reality is I'm good, bad, helpful, and unhelpful with my kids every week. And yeah, I live and breathe in this space. And I think the complexities of those relationships and some of the challenges we see around sport, I just felt that we could do it in a better way to be more engaging, bring people on the journey with us, try to look at what are we doing to support our young people to fulfill their potential? So that's where working with parents in sport kicked off, and it has grown from that very small moment into something that's become a global business. So yeah, amazing where these things start sometimes.
No, I love it, and I think a lot of parents listening, myself included, can remember those days when you were first there watching your own kids and trying to navigate it. And then those that are in coaching and education, sometimes they're not the best role models either. Okay.
No.
Um, as you had this idea, you were ready to take it, what were those first couple years like? What were some of the things that you did to kind of spread the word and also build your brand?
Oh, no, it was massively tough. I mean, I think if you told me now how much hard work went into the first 3 years for absolutely nothing, I don't think I could probably do it again. But then that's probably what most people go through without realizing. It was hugely tough. We set off by focusing on parents, tried to create some resources, some books, some workshops, built the website platform, started offering webinars and getting it out there on social media in the hope that people would engage with it. And we've been massively fortunate. I think that once a couple of national sports organizations start having a look, the moment you've got a couple of Premier League football teams, the moment you've got some top end rugby pathways or cricket pathways, it just gets easier because people look at it and say, oh goodness, what are we potentially missing out on? There could be something in this. And I think that once you start getting one or two, it then has now got silly where we're getting inquiries from all over the world across so many different sports. And, that's really exciting. But yeah, just a lot of hard work, a lot of content creation, a lot of social media work, having conversations with people, just trying to get people to buy into the vision, was very much the first 3 years, and the last three have been pretty exciting, to be fair.
Yeah, I came across your I think I maybe came across your profile on LinkedIn. You had posted some things and I'm just going, wow, this is fantastic stuff. We're going to get into some of the services that you provide in that next segment, but um, looking at these last couple years, particularly coming out of COVID, have you done anything different with your approach to parents? Have you noticed anything different that you had to pivot a little bit as an organization with your message for the parents coming out of COVID? Because I know that's been something here in the United States that administrators and coaches and leaders have been having to work with.
Yeah, I don't think I think, because I still think that I guess the information we were providing prior to that was still the right information. Obviously, you're evolving it all the time in terms of the context you find people in. But having worked with a lot of coaches, program managers, there's definitely probably been a change in how parents parent. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I'm always very open with the parents I talk to. I sometimes wonder what this generation of parents are possibly thinking. And that includes myself in that, by the way, who admits very often to some of his own failings around sport. I do think it's going to have to come back a little bit, back towards the middle. I think we're potentially making life very different for our young people, telling them they can have what they want. No, you can't. And I work with some of the top high performers in the world. No, you can't, guys. It doesn't work like that. And the world's never worked like that. And, this idea that, to be good at anything, hard work, perseverance, it's arduous. And yet these young people, through no fault of their own, are getting everything instantly. Want to go shopping, I'll go on Amazon. Want takeaway food, I go on my app. Want this, oh, you can have it. Actually, when you get to 18 and out into the big world, the world doesn't quite look like that. And, I do, it is amazing though. When you do it well, And I'm always very supportive of parents, and as I say, share my phone. But when you do it well, parents sit there through the painting of pictures and stories and they say, yeah, I'm not so sure. They don't have to agree with everything that you say, but it definitely helps with a bit of self-awareness, which is what we were talking about earlier, because you're never going to get it right all the time, because none of us can get it right all the time. But actually, hang on a minute, is that really the best approach that I'm using here when it comes to this? So yeah, no, maybe not, but I think there's a few things that we're having to work around, let's say, in the last couple of years.
Well, we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the many, many services that are available through your platform for coaches, for parents, for administrators. Once again, our guest today is Gordon MacLelland, the CEO of an organization called Working with Parents in Sport. Let's take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more, but I'm going to. Hometown Ticketing is more support, it's more security, and it's more customization. If you go to hometownticketing.com, their team is going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets online, not just for athletic events, but for things like school plays, concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school gets a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide hands-on support to you every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com and talk to their team. hometownticketing.com. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that allowed them to coach our kids up to the highest level. Go to huddle.com, see why we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 8 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Gordon, we talked a little bit about the origin of and maybe the why for working with parents in sports. Let's go and talk about the what. What kind of services are available if I'm listening and I'm a school, if I'm a director of sports, an athletic director, or if I'm a coach of an individual team, or maybe I'm even a parent. What are some services that are available through your organization?
Yeah, I mean, well, we've talked a lot about parents, as I mentioned earlier, was where we certainly started this piece, and then it became very apparent the challenges that coaches and teachers were facing working with parents, and the fact that actually nobody really provides us with those skills as coaches. Nobody really helps prepare us for the difficult conversations or receiving the late night email full of Sauvignon Blancs telling us we're the worst people that have ever, been involved in sport. Many of the things that go with that. So actually, the coach education piece has become equally as big now. We work with some of the best coaches in the world, in schools and in high performance environments, just looking at how we build positive relationships in the best interests of the young athletes that we are coaching. So we'd sort of done the parent piece and the coach piece. And then we thought, well, hang on, it's no good us just doing the coaches and the parents if then the values and the alignment of the organization then aren't aligned. So what did that mean for management of a program? How do we bring everybody together to work in the best interests of these young people? So we started looking at the cultural piece around, aligning our coach ed with what we were giving our parents, what information we were providing, and building that positive parent culture in the environments. And then more recently, somebody said, well, Gordon, you've got all these different hats on, you've seen it. How about you start talking to the athletes as well? because they said you'll be a neutral voice. You used to be a teacher, and they'll enjoy a good chat talking about when mum and dad are at the best and the worst, and when the coaches are at the best and the worst, and navigating some of the things they have to navigate as teenagers now, and trying to help them develop some of those sort of high performing character traits, which I really am sort of passionate about with young people. So it's great because it almost provides that information in real time on the ground when you work with organizations. So we're across basically all of the stakeholders. We're not safeguarding, we're not welfare. We're about the relationships between all the people in a sporting system, and how we bring that to life. So we do that via workshops and webinars. We've started doing some work in the US recently with a couple of your soccer franchises across whole clubs, which has been exciting. We've got books for all of those different people within a sports system that can be customized by the clubs and schools that we work with, or the sports organizations. So our website, you can customize that, put your own logo on, add some of your own information, and then it allows you to resource your entire community with all of the working with parents in sport content. I mean, sport's funny, isn't it? If it was Gordon MacLelland in Yorkshire in England and that was the brand, Gordon MacLelland probably wouldn't get very far. But the moment that sports can have their logo on, it looks like they've done all the work. Everybody's happy to work with you. But that's probably the nature of sports and what it is. So yeah, the website's available, all of our books. So we've got a sports performance parenting book, which we've got some national sports have even customized for their sports and made for sale to all their parents. That looks at the whole sports parenting journey, from the very start to how you manage disappointment, how you sports parent the teenage brain, how you protect your kids' identities, all the conflicts of being parent and sporting parent. Got books for coaches on how you build relationships with parents. And then we've even got those books for the parent coach, the one who volunteers and doesn't realize what they were letting themselves in for, not only have to navigate the world of youth sport, but also navigate the fact that they've also got to do their own parenting with their own children whilst also coach them. So all of our workshops, all of our sessions have got accompanying resources. And as I say, organizations just work with us, build their platforms, build their resources, put on the workshops, put on webinars, and pick and choose. It's a bit like going to the sweet shop. Just build your own package and make it work for what you're trying to do in your environment.
Yeah, you talk about working across the bandwidth there, and touching all the bases. We'll do this at the end of the interview, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, connect with the website, even connect with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
Yeah, so the website is www.parentsinsport.co.uk. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at WWPIS. And then if people type in Gordon MacLelland into Google or even into LinkedIn, you will find the profiles, and obviously we end up with lots of dialogues through those channels as well.
I think it's cliche, but remember, cliches are there because there's a little truth to them. I think the cliche of the British soccer fan, very passionate, let's say maybe sometimes over the top, is probably right in line with the cliche of certain American sports parents, at the youth soccer game or the little league baseball game. When you present to, let's say, that type of group where maybe they've got that reputation and somebody has called you in, or they've called you in, what are some of the things that you do initially? I'm not asking you to go into your whole spiel, but what's something that you do to kind of maybe connect with them? Because you already talked about building those relationships.
Yeah, look, I think the key is, and I always say this is, and this is at every level, even work with parents whose kids go to the Olympics and parents whose kids are about to sign £1 million football contracts, all the things that come with that. I think the reality is that if we strip it all away and just say, how are we best supporting our kids to fulfill their potential, both on and off the field, I think it allows us to stop for a moment, not try and copy and paste the version we see on the TV into the youth space, because that isn't how we develop young people or young sports people, and just spend that moment thinking about, well, how can I add value as a parent? Because I'm massively passionate. I mean, I'm as competitive and as passionate about the world as anybody. But what that doesn't have to spill into, passion doesn't have to mean then shouting the loudest or behaving in a certain way. Still want to win, and still maybe my kids, if they want to be the best, I maybe still want to be the best, but there are ways and means to do that. And actually, we've certainly found in some of the most difficult environments a number of parents who've come away and gone, wow, thank you, never even thought about it that way, is huge, because maybe maybe they're just getting swept along by how the world perceives sport on a society level, and what they deem to be that's surely what you must do here. And I think those two arenas are very different.
No, you're absolutely right. Again, we have those same challenges here, in the United States with our teams, our coaches, our parents. We'll give this out again, but check out the website. It is very, very expansive, but very well organized too. That's correct me if I'm wrong, uh, www working with wwpis.co.uk. There, I was trying to do it without looking at it. Working with parents in sports. We're going to take another break, but we are coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive for their support. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their scoreboards and their score tables. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we used it for home games, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, schedule a live web demo to see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association platform for us. It's also your one-stop platform for things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance, and a whole lot more. As an athletic director, I used Home Campus every single day, and it was just great, and you're going to love it too. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. Check it out today. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Gordon, one of the things that we try to do with this podcast is the idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do with working with parents, or maybe there are things that you've seen at some other organizations that you would consider a best practice? You have anything that sticks out?
Oh yeah, a lot. I think there are a number. I think the first one is definitely the building of the relationship piece. I think that's it. Whether you're in any role, whether you're talking about the relationships you build with your coaches, your parents, your athletes, and the more time you spend on this planet, the more I realize how important that is. We've got, even out in the world, we've got people criticizing that the youth of today can't hold conversations anymore, that they're struggling. And obviously the links to device usage, absolutely fundamental for me. Your ability to talk, build relationships with people, and certainly that with parents, I think is number one. I think I often think sometimes some of the challenges we face in this field is that we've become really reactive to how we communicate sometimes with parents. I think that, you know, everybody's got their own experiences of parents. When I talk to thousands of coaches, which I do, we have all got our, I guess, the stories that we can tell of the worst possible parent. And the reality is that actually probably 90% of them were all right, who, if we'd actually given them a bit more, would have done even more to help us out. I think we always end up remembering the worst case scenario, of which you get some, you know, classic stories, but actually that isn't probably the norm of what we face. So I think we can be more proactive in our communication. I think we can communicate better just generally. And I think particularly when people are new into our program, and I say this a lot, we want to be stamping our identity, our values, our beliefs, what we do here on our new people, because what we don't want them to do is come in, not understand any of that, but then start forming their own opinions, start watching their own behaviors. And because we haven't given them much information, they start to make up their own narratives. They join up their own dots and often join them up in the wrong way. So I definitely think there's something we can do proactively. I think we've got to acknowledge that we're working in partnership with parents. You know, we've got to understand that up until children are 14, 15, their parents generally are the biggest influence on their kids. So we can still be the best coaches in the world, we can run the best programs, but these could be getting dismantled at home if parents are delivering conflicting messages to that of the coaches, if parents aren't helping develop those key character traits in young people, if parents aren't role modeling the types of behavior we want to see from our young people in the programs. All of that good work can go if we haven't tried to step in, intervene, and build that partnership with them. And I think that the other one, and I would say this to whether you're an athletic director working with anybody, is people like feedback and progress, and like to know what's going on. And I think sometimes, you know, where we have lots of silence, or people don't get feedback, or people aren't given an up-to-date check on progress, you either assume that the silence means everything's brilliant, and then sometimes it isn't, and then you get a shock when information suddenly appears. I think we see a lot of that. But also, when I talk to parents and I say to them, what do you want most from coaches? They will say, I'd love to know what's going on in some capacity. So yeah, I think there's definitely a few there that if we really consider those, I think could have a major impact on what we're doing.
Yeah, as someone who was a coach and an athletic director for, basically 41 years, the communication concept that you talked about, I just love to know what's going on. Parents are starving for information because, as you know, their kids don't tell them anything. Okay. And it used to be when I was a young coach, and again, I'm a little older than you, but I'm sure it was similar for you. You would just tell the kids, all right, practice is going to be here, the bus is going to be there, and that's all you did. And now parents, and it's not right, wrong, good or bad, it's just the way it is. Parents are more involved; they want to know. So just give them that information. When you're able to do that as a coach, or especially as an athletic director, life becomes so much easier. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think there's a bit of magic in there as well, because actually when we talk about high performing young people, one of the key traits is this sort of self-organized athlete. Actually, the magic would happen where we are giving the parents the information to start with, and we give them all of that. But then actually, when they maybe been in our programs for a few years and we're starting to encourage ownership with our teenagers, we might then have such a good relationship with the parents to say, do you know what? We spoke to you about self-organized athletes and how we're preparing them for the next stages. Maybe now we're going to start telling them, we want them to take a bit more ownership of this. Ask your kid, get your information still, but we're just going to change it. But it's been really well thought out and implemented, rather than, and everybody knows that's what we're trying to do, because our young people aren't always the most reliable on things like that. And I include my own kids in that, to be fair.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. And in the States, in the last few years, our national organization, the NIAAA, I was actually part of the authorship team. We created a course. It used to be dealing with parents or managing parents. Now the course is called partnering with parents, reaching out, and you're not giving them the keys to the car, but they're along for the ride. So let's make it a
Yeah.
positive ride. Let's make it a partnership, let them know what their role is. Great stuff. Oh, I love it. Well, this has been really cool spending some time with you, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in the toolbox. So let's take that break. When we return, we're going to see what Gordon MacLelland puts into his new athletic director toolbox. We'll be right back. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for their support of the podcast. Go to their website, athleticsurveys.com. They can create a custom survey for your program that lets you take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. Athletic directors already hear back from the complainers, those ones that want to gripe about everything. Athletic Surveys will not only connect you with that group, but also with the 98% of your parents that really love and support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with that frustrated parent or your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Like I said, they can create a custom survey to help you take the pulse of your program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We have been visiting with Gordon MacLelland, the CEO of a tremendous organization called Working with Parents in Sports. Certainly knows his way around the world of athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge him to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 things in the toolbox. So Gordon, what 3 items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Yeah, I wish I'd certainly had these, Jake, when I started. There's definitely been a bit of reflection on these. I definitely think you've got to understand your what and your why. I really do. What you're trying to achieve, why you want to achieve that. And then I think that in terms of clarifying your thoughts and your actions, it's far easier then linked to everything with that. I even think now some of the work I do, I think, right, well, what am I trying to achieve? Decided what it is. And it's like, is that action that I'm going to do today, is that going to make that happen? Or am I going off on another tangent here? Or am I pulling in a different direction? And I think it then helps you prioritize it, gets you to clear your thoughts about, this is what I set out to do. This is why I wanted to do it. Actually, is the stuff I'm doing day to day actually achieving that? And I think that would be something I would spend some time with. That curiosity piece. When you first go into somewhere, don't do what I did. I remember one of my first sort of director of sport jobs. I achieved everything we wanted to achieved more than we could ever have wanted to achieve. And if you asked if I could do it again, the thing I would have changed is I could have built better relationships with the people I was sort of working with to come with me. No problem with the kids, no problem with the parents. But in trying to get where I wanted, I probably trampled through absolutely everything and did get there. And probably then spent the rest of the time getting people back on side, which I did get there in the end, but I would just do it differently. So I think ask lots of questions to help build the relationships that you have, show curiosity, give people a voice in the process that are helping you in the program that you run. I think a big one for me as well is gain understanding of the environment that you're in, the history, the things that have gone before. When it's not our job to go in and destroy history. There's going to be some good bits of history, there's going to be some bad bits of history, but actually understanding how things have evolved, I think then allows us to link with those, and sort of build from those and make changes from those. And then the last one is be patient, give yourself a chance. I mean, the world's littered at the highest level where you don't get time. But I think in most educational environments, we get a little bit to make our mark. So, give yourself a chance. Rome wasn't built in a day. And remember that, change can be tricky for people to navigate. So try not to do everything all at once. Just build in the bits as you're going, and make those small improvements. Unless you've got something drastic to do, of course, and then do what you want. But in most cases, you shouldn't have to rip up absolutely everything that you find.
But you probably saw me scribbling those down furiously. Great ideas, and your last one really sticks out for me. That patience. Figure out what the culture is, what the history is. Certainly, there's things that can be improved on, but just because something's different, you don't want to come in and rip that out and find out too late that was a foundational piece of the culture, and somebody is ripping you out of that picture and you're looking for a new job. Great stuff, Gordon. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. One more time, if one of our listeners wants to reach out and connect with you or check out Working with Parents in Sports, and listeners, you really need to visit the website, if for nothing else. There's coaching sections, there's parent sections, a ton of resources. They even have a newsletter you can sign up for. Gordon, what's the best way that they can find all of that?
Yeah, so that's at www.parentsinsport.co.uk. The contact details are on there as well. And delighted to hear from anybody that would like to talk.
Well, Gordon, once again, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. All the best in the coming months with all the activities you got. And if you make it over here to the States, you got to connect with us down here in Florida. Maybe you can even attend our national conference, which is coming up in December in Orlando. How's that sound? Orlando in December.
Well, it probably sounds better than winter in Yorkshire, Jake. Probably well. Having said that, I'm not sure it would be warmer, but it sounds pretty good. But thank you for having us on the show.
Thank you. Right back. For our listeners, we certainly want to thank you for listening. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Come back next time for another great interview on the Educational AD Podcast.